Hello once again. This is your professor, Danny Reneta Cabulay, on the course Accountancy Research. We're now in the home stretch, the tail end of the accounting report or the research report. And we're tackling here, we're now in week number 8, by the way. We're tackling here video lecture number 37, and we will talk about how to formulate conclusions. So, conclusions are the offshoot of your summary of findings. For conclusions to be factual and logical, they should be linked to the findings analyzed and discussed in previous chapter. Cohesiveness is one of the most important attributes of a good research. Ibig sabihin nun, yung mga sentences mo, they're linked to one another. Hindi pwede na yung first sentence has no relationship to sentence number 2. So that means sentence number 3 must be related to sentence number 2, and so on and so forth. So that means when you write your sentences and paragraphs, they should be coherent or cohesive. They should be telling a beautiful story that can be comprehensible, yung naiintindihan. Okay? So mahirap kasi kung tayo ay nagkikwento tapos patalon-talon tayo ng ideas, hindi tayo maiintindihan ng ating readers. Okay? When it is not cohesive, it appears to be unscientific, whimsical, unsound, and incongruous. Ibig sabihin masyadong chaotic, magulong basahin ang isang research paper na walang cohesiveness or coherence. Okay? Now, to make the conclusions more relevant, the researcher must state the potential direct or indirect implications of each item. So, pag ini-enumerate na natin ang ating mga conclusions, dapat ipapakita natin bakit yan ang conclusion natin. So, hindi basta nagbigay ka lang ng isang narrative, ng isang sentence, and that's it. No, you have to show why it is important. But the explanation should be very brief. Hindi dapat siya mahaba. Okay? It should be very direct to the point, should be very brief and direct to the point. Okay? Now, they do not address or answer the research problem, questions, but moreover, they cite how they affect the stakeholders of the study and their environment. No? So hindi mo lang sinasagot yung mga SOPs na tinatawag natin na research problems. Okay? Like for example, which computer package is the best if we're going to computerize the entire company? Okay? Which software do we use? So that is the SOP. So when you make your conclusion, you try to cite which software are you going to choose? What do you actually need, and then why? Okay, why is it important? Okay, why is it important to select the right software? What criteria will you use, for example? Okay, now the conclusion is intended to help readers, users, and stakeholders of the study or report understand why the research should matter to them, how it affects them, and internalize the impact of the study. It is not merely a summary of the main topics discussed or a restatement of the research problem, but a synthesis of key points and, whenever applicable, could lead to recommended course or courses of action and a new area for future research. Okay? So that means kapag tayo ay gumagawa ng conclusion, kailangan ito ay direct to the point, at kailangan ito ay magli-lead to a course or a course of actions. Okay? A well-written conclusion provides the researcher with vital opportunities to demonstrate to the users of the study a good understanding of the research problem in terms of the following. First, presenting the final word on the research issues tackled in the study. So kung ano yung mga problema na gusto mong itackle, kailangan magbigay ka na ng final word because the conclusion is the final word. Okay? Maybe a one-liner, two-liner, and a little elaboration. Summarizing the insights and conveying the larger significance of the study. Okay. And identifying how the research gap in the review of literature and studies has been addressed. Kung for example, dati walang mga pag-aaral na kagaya ng ginawa mo, itong ginawa mo ay naa-address na niya yung kakulangan sa or shortage in literature or shortage in studies that have been done for this specific study. Then, you want to also demonstrate the importance of the study by elaborating the impact of the research findings. Ano ang magiging katuturan nito? okay, sa mga stakeholders. Finally, you may want to introduce a fresh or innovative approach to the research problem. So your solution could be a new approach after all. It's not traditional. So that could be one conclusion that you could actually embark on. Okay? So that's how you write your conclusion. Okay? Now, I'll give you two examples. The paper of Attorney Simeon Marcelo on investigating corruption in the Philippines, a former Tanod Bayan's experience, represents a somewhat indulgent approach in his conclusions from the vicarious experiences of the researcher, that is, Attorney Marcelo. Let us read the first part. The crusade for a good governance and anti-corruption is the foundation of the current administration of the Philippines. After 3 years in office, Daang Matuwid, or in English, the straight path, as the crusade to crush corruption is called by our President Benigno Simeon C. Aquino III, has already produced positive results, validating the theory that corruption is the biggest obstacle to economic development and poverty alleviation. So that is a very sweeping conclusion, okay, of his qualitative study. Kasi yung study na ginawa niya, qualitative yon. Okay? Now, let's look at another example of a conclusion in the research paper of Mark Clatworth and Edward Lee. This is a foreign study on financial analyst role, valuation, and stewardess as shown in the slides. In summary, there is significant evidence presented in the papers in this special issue that analysts perform important functions in both valuation, in stewardship, even though potential biases sometimes need to be adjusted for. Taken together, the papers show that the objectives, capabilities, and roles of analysts are more complex than is sometimes assumed. Despite potential conflicts of interest, the consequences and implications of analyst incentives are not always easy to anticipate. The papers also identify and test the circumstances under which analyst role and performance varies, such as when firm performance is low, where firms withhold information, and when information acquisition costs are low. We hope and expect that the papers in this issue will generate further debate and research into these important intermediaries and the roles they play in capital allocation. Okay, so that's how a conclusion is written. Now, here is your video lecture number 37 exercise. Among these 5 sentences, which one is not a good introduction statement? Okay, so a good introduction to state the conclusion section. Okay, so these are the intros. Okay, alin dito yung hindi maganda na gawing panimula ng isang conclusion section? Okay, the conclusion could be one paragraph, right, or several paragraphs. Okay, let's start. Is it A? In the final analysis, it is best to. Or is it B? Based on the findings, it is now apparent that. Or C, the responses of the experts are hereby presented as. Or D, in summary, the findings lead to the following conclusions. Or is it E, the most significant generalization that can be derived are. So which one is not a good introduction statement to the conclusion section? Write your answer, only the letter, in the comment section below this video. Remember, this is video lecture number 37. I'll see you around for video lecture number 38.